Hey y'all, today is May the 4th. May the 4th be with you, but more importantly for this video, it is the release of the season finale of Moon Knight. Can you believe that we got to episode 6, which was entitled episode 6, and I'm kind of like, you guys really couldn't come up with something more clever than that? I don't know, whatever. But today we're here to review the finale and talk about my feelings about Moon Knight in general now that it is completed and the door is closed on that chapter of the MCU. How crazy is that? Wow. This episode was the first time I really felt like this series belonged in the MCU. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, there were these references and, you know, maybe that's just not your preference. But there was something about when Layla and Marc were running in the final battle against Harrow and Layla has her Tarawet avatar armor on. There was something about that just very reminded me of Ant-Man and the Wasp, like running towards something, and just felt like an iconic shot in a Marvel movie or series, which I know people might say, oh, well, that's like cliched, like, so you only feel like it fits into Marvel if it's cliched. No, that just something in that, like, gutturally in my gut felt like, oh, this is Marvel. And I really have not felt that most of this series, and I think that's where some of my opinions on it do come. But I really did like that element of Layla becoming an avatar and kind of bringing her back into play. And going off of that, I was genuinely just surprised in this episode how much they were able to accomplish, because I listed off at the end of my last review all of the things that kind of either needed to be referenced, whether or not they were like completely summed up by the end of the series. I felt like they needed to either be like addressed or referenced, which was like where Harrow has been and where Layla has been. And I feel like picking up with them while Marc is still in the field of reeds, I feel like that was just kind of the perfect way to transition the story and give you some anticipation for Marc eventually meeting back up with Steven and coming back to life, which we'll discuss later. I was really impressed with how they were able to swiftly do that and not make the whole episode feel like an exposition dump. Kept me engaged the whole episode, and it was a rather short episode too, so for them to be able to accomplish all of that, that's great. They also had Jake as a great post-credit scene, because that is the one thing that kind of remains unaddressed by the end of this season, and I feel like having him as a post-credit scene is a way to like not really introduce that in the episode and feel like it needs to be closed off by the end of the episode. But I know that people would have been disappointed if it didn't even like show up in the show, so I thought that was really great. Additionally, I think that's a really great setup for either a film that Moon Knight is going to show up in. Will Jake Lockley appear as a villain to another Marvel hero, or will there be a second season of Moon Knight? There was no confirmation like there was with Loki at the end of this episode. This is where I kind of get to with there being one post-credit scene, no confirmation of a second season, the like, I guess, swiftness of this series that I haven't felt even in 6 episodes of other shows. Like in Hawkeye, it genuinely did feel like 6 days, and again, I had a lot more hype for that series, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I question whether this would have been better as a movie or as a series that would have dropped in its entirety on its own. And on one hand, I think there was so kind of little narratively going on here, and a lot of it was emotional, and I feel like that would have felt a lot more tied together if it was a singular movie, and the series wouldn't feel like we're getting sort of breadcrumbs each week. And then we only had one post-credit scene, which does make it feel more like a movie as opposed to some of our other shows that have had multiple post-credit scenes. Not all of them, I understand that. I'm not trying to speak falsities here. I'm just saying, like, in that way, to me, it feels like a movie. There's a lot tighter of a cast. They did a much better job about singling out a villain and really focusing on the character development. But again, those are things that would have been better as a movie. However, my major reason against that, now that I'm processing it all with you, is this episode when Marc decides to leave the field of reeds to go back to Steven. If there had not been a week of real world time between when he gets to the field of reeds at the end of last episode and when he goes back to Steven, it would have felt like it was probably 15 minutes of screen time. And to me, that doesn't leave you with the feeling of permanence that it does when you end an episode that way. So if it had been a movie and all of these episodes had been stitched together exactly as they are, it would have felt like it was a very quick resolution to that issue, and it would not have felt like Steven was lost, because at the end of last week's episode, when you end the episode, the credits start rolling for the week, you know you have to wait another week to see how they're going to get out of all of these messes. it does leave you with a much more lasting sense of emotional impact, and to me that would be lost completely if this was just a movie. And so those are the things that I'm like weighing with these series and these Marvel series in general, is that sometimes it's just hard for me to figure out, are they doing the TV thing right, or are they just like chopping up a movie into episodes, or what? And I think that to me is the difference with a weekly release, is that you feel that emotional weight for an entire week. And then even if it's resolved quite quickly in this episode, which to be fair, I think it was about the midpoint of this episode that happened, then you feel much more a sense of relief, or that the show earned it, and that sort of thing, where you can't get that in a 2-hour movie. Ultimately, I feel like at the end of this series, I am pleasantly surprised with the finale, and I'm really excited to see where this character pops up next, especially having Steven and Marc be aligned at the end of this season, but not knowing kind of what prerogative Jake Lockley works under, and him still being the avatar for Khonshu. I like that Arthur Harrow was killed off, or at least we think, because to me that kind of puts a seal on what this season was. Whether it does end up being a movie in the future or a series, I don't know, but kind of removing him and allowing a new villain to rise up against Moon Knight, or have it be a more internal battle this time. But I personally, just this show in general was not my MCU taste, as we talked about earlier this week in my unpopular opinions video. I'm glad that it exists. I appreciate the craftsman's work that went into this series. It just wasn't like my favorite of the series. Like, I personally preferred What If to this one, and that is nothing against how good the show is or your enjoyment of it. I'm just sharing that opinion because that is the whole point of this channel. That is all for my thoughts on Moon Knight. Please let me know what you thought of the season finale and the season as a whole down in the comments below. Do you think there's going to be a season 2? Do you think this will be a limited series? Do you think it will lead into a movie? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please consider liking this video and hitting the subscribe button. It would really help this video and my channel and make me smile. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I so appreciate you all. I hope you have an absolutely amazing day or night whenever you're getting to watch this, and I will see you in my very next video. Bye, y'all.